Good evening, everyone. Bill Baker, faithful believer in Jesus Christ. And before we move on, I have a couple of brief announcements. Okay, number one, our fellowship breakfast will be at Denny's at Saturday, May 27th, starting 9:30 a.m. All are welcome to come and fellowship. Have a wonderful time, okay? Okay, second announcement is we have a men's prayer line on Tuesdays from 8 p.m. The number is 605 area code 468-8009, and the code is 486346. Okay, last but not least, I don't know if this will be online or in-person summit, but it's a Celebrate Recovery Summit 2023 from July 19th to the 21st. And the information will be online at www.celebraterecovery.com. Any more information, please speak with myself or Craig. Thanks for letting me share.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a faithful believer in Jesus Christ. I'm truly grateful for Celebrate Recovery. God is doing some amazing things here. And I know today is our session on Grace Calls. When we think about what Robin Widener has shared with us, her life. I know we started off with trauma. Then we went to thorns, triggers. But I'd like to introduce our speaker for tonight, who's going to talk about tears. Tears about the new creation God is making and doing within us. And I'm going to open the floor to Calistine Faust.
I know. Good evening, everyone. My name is Calistine Faust, and I'm a faithful believer in Jesus Christ. And I tell you, I was reading part 2 of Grace Call. We're talking about recreation. And I thought, man, God is so amazing. It's like, how do you come up with these things? You know, how do you recreate somebody? You know, but he had a plan, you know, to recreate us, to be what his son is. You know, on the way, we stopped off and did some things we wanted to do. And we bypassed this plan for a while. That's why we're here, right, guys? And, you know, just reading Robin Widener's book about trusting the pain. It's like, how do you trust pain? That's very scary because it's like it hurts. And I don't want to trust pain. You know, I want to be what I want to be. I don't want to feel none of that. But tonight we're going to learn about tears, learning how to truly mourn our losses. You know, we're going to talk about spiritual, letting our wounds speak to us. You know, we're going to talk about the stone of tears, tears and intimacy, and then lastly we'll talk about what grace says. You know, in Ephesians 5:13 it says, but everything exposed by the light becomes visible. And everything that is illuminated becomes a light. It says, this is why it is said, wake up, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. And it's like everything, bless you, it's like God's light shines in us. That's what it's doing now. You know, it's making things clear to us. It's making things visible. You know, it's shine. We've lived in this dark place for so long, we don't even know how to get out of the light. He has to tell us how, but yet we think we know, and we don't know. And that's why that stone of tears. There was the stone of trauma. There was the stone of thorns. There was the stone of triggers. You know, all those things, simply because we bypassed and made decisions, made our choices, but also not just us and somebody inflicting some things on us too. But it says that he illuminates everything. He shows us who we are. He shows us what we need to confess, what we need to talk about. He shows us what's in our heart, the darkness that's in our heart. You know, and he said, wake up, O sleeper. Rise from the dead. It's like you're dead. You're dead. Wake up. I'm shining this light on you so you can wake up. So you can be what I want you to be. So we can deal with all these things that we've encountered in our lives. It says, very true in John 12:24, it's very true, I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground, and we've shared this before, and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. And Christ compared himself to a seed, a kernel of wheat. He says when it dies, unless it falls to the ground and die, it doesn't multiply. And you've seen wheat like corn. You've seen a corn stalk. I mean, you guys ever been to the country? It grows up high, and it's got the little sheaves and everything. We used to go and pull the corn from out of the stalk and everything when we would visit my grandmother in the country. And that's what that little seed produced. That kernel of wheat produced that tall stalk of corn. And Jesus had to die so that we could be what that wheat was, that corn of wheat was. And how he compared himself that I have to die in order for you to be here, in order for you to know, in order for you to be saved. He had to die. And he says that we're going to produce fruit just like he produced fruit. He's taken us where he's been. And he knows how to go there. He's been there. He wants us to go there because he's taken us there. And he knows that we can do that. It says, Wendell Berry said, healing is impossible in loneliness. It is the opposite of loneliness. It's the opposite of loneliness. To be healed, we must come with all the other creatures to the feast of creation. What are those other creatures? Is it our trauma? Is it our thorns? Is it our tears? What is it? It says we must bring these to it. But tonight, we're going to talk about the new recreation stones 4-8. Gives honor to the foundation you have already laid. And we've laid that foundation already. I don't know if we really understand it. A lot of times we go through things and we don't really absorb it until much later on. Do you really go back and think about what we talk about in CR? What hit your heart? You're not going to absorb everything, but it's like what pricked your heart? What is God trying to tell you here? If we're asking God for healing, trauma, thorns, and triggers brings our losses to his loving light. God he's illuminating our losses. He's showing us what they are and how we need to be, how we need to treat these losses so that we can come into the light. The darkness, both formless, empty, is where God began his creation, and it is there we get to examine the soil of our heart, excavate the soil, the rocks, and turn the soil we have packed down lest we hurt again. It's like we got to look at our heart. The Bible calls us stiff-necked. We're prideful. We got to look at what has happened to us through all these other previous stones. And God is wanting us to excavate, to turn it up, to go in deep, to when they excavate, they blow things up, you know what I'm saying? I remember that word because I was in insurance, and I was like, oh, we're not going to cover you. You excavate. You're a risk. And so he wants us to go deep inside of ourselves and look and see what that soil is like, our hearts are like, and how we have buried it, but he wants us to uproot it so we can get what we need. And I think about Robin is praying that you find comfort in knowing that we're going somewhere Jesus has gone first. I love that because that stood out to me. God has already prepared us. He's already gone there, so he knows exactly what's going to happen. And we need to be able to go there and experience the pain. We need to be able to lean into it. We need to be able to not be afraid of it. And it is not easy. It is not easy. I promise you, I've been there. Robin is also praying that you find stones ahead, not only related to the consequence of other people's decision, but also to your choices you've made. So why create? Why recreate? She went to this class his doctor was teaching on grief. And she walked in and she was like, man, these people look weird, you know. They're all hunched down, but they were mourning, they were hurting, you know. And Dr. Ritz, his wife, she tells a story about how his wife contracted cancer, she had melanoma. And they did all the things needed to do. Cancer was gone, but it came back. And she succumbed to death. And he was devastated. You know, he was devastated. He had lost his wife, and they saw where he was depressed and, you know, because of the loss that he had encountered. You know, and he was teaching this class, and he went back to Genesis 1:2, where it talked about how God created the world and how he formed the world. And he talked about how, he said he realized that the way God created the world, how he was looking at, in the Bible, God was saying he was hovering over the deep, the dark, trying to figure out what is it I'm going to do next. You know, he said it was formless and empty, and he applied that, I guess, to himself. He realized he described chaos. And it's like, yet the Spirit of God was hovering nearby, ready to work. He was ready to do whatever. And that's how we need to be. We need to be ready to work and do whatever it takes for us to be able to come out on the end, because God's waiting for us on the end. You know, it says chaos is not an obstacle for God. It's not. I mean, he's gone through it already. The thought of recreation can be scary. As I said earlier, it's intimidating, yet it streams hope. That is what we want, hope. When we go through these stones, it's like God's preparing our hearts for so much more. And I pray that, you know, I said, God, I'm ready to go through it. I prayed that this week. I said, take me through it. Whatever it is, I'm ready to go in there full force. You know, and I thought, do you know what you're saying? Because he did that to me one time, you know, and I did go full force. It wasn't pretty. You know, it was not pretty at all. There was a lot of tears. I could tell y'all the story. Y'all may hear it at some point. But believe me, there was a lot of tears. And because I was very frustrated, there was a lot of stuff in me that I looked at the situation. I always looked at the situation and why I was there, but I never looked at why God had me there. What was he trying to tell me? You know, Cheryl says all the time, when you understand the why, everything else falls into place. You know, and I thought that is so cool. You know, you don't have to go any further. Now you just got to work on it and see what you need to do. Charles Dickens says, heaven knows we need never be ashamed of our tears, for they are rain upon the blinding dust of earth, overlying our hard hearts, overlying. I was better after I had cried than before, sorrier and more aware of my own ingratitude, gentler. Do you guys feel that when you cry? I feel like, I've got it out until the next time. I feel so soft, you know, like I just want to hug everybody. It's weird how God created the tears. And I feel free. I feel like I got something off my chest. So the crying, the tears is nothing to be ashamed of. God created tears. It talks about he put them in bottles. Can you imagine that? That is amazing. Weeping as the outgrowth of tender, engaged spiritual aware hears. Weeping as the outgrowth of a tender, engaged, spiritually aware heart is a powerful weapon. It really is. When you grow spiritually, when you're no longer doing the things you used to do, and you cried about it, and you talked about it, and you see how you're aware, you know, you're aware of what you went through, and that you got convictions about it. It's a very powerful thing, you know, because I was like, I see you saying, I'm not going there, you're not going to get me with that. You know, and I got convictions about it, and I'm strong, and I'm hanging on to that, and I'm fighting, you know. Tears brings that, because I had to cry it out. I was telling Craig, I said, I don't know if I can do tears. I was at work reading the book, and I started crying. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm crying here. What am I going to do in front of everybody else? I literally was weeping, because I thought about people being hurt, being harassed, and needing God, and needing to get this stuff out that we've forgotten. what our purpose is. God has a purpose for our tears. We may not see it, but he has a purpose for our tears. So we need to cry, y'all. And so it says here, as you trust the redemptive power of tears, you will begin to see vulnerability as one of your most sacred callings. I love being vulnerable. I love being humble. It hurts now, don't get me wrong. God has to bring me there. But I love it because, and when I pray about it, being open about my life, I'm not ashamed. Because God got me there. He brought me there. I'm not ashamed to tell anybody my life. And I know that he delivered me from it. I'm redeemed. It's redemptive power. It really is. And that's what he's trying to do with us in this storm. Looking back, I had asked myself, Robin, why didn't you let Dave into the pain? When she said that, I thought, what is that going to do? But that's what they're working on. Like, you guys, you married people. Listen at me, you married people. When your wife cries, are you in the pain? Are you there? Are you feeling that pain? Dave was talking about how his heart was so hard and he had forgotten how to feel. She cried, but he was like, let me get out of the room. I'm going. Have we forgotten how it hardens the heart by not being vulnerable, by not allowing your spouse or me allowing someone to help me, to cry with me? And that's what she said. She was like, I had to ask myself, why didn't you let Dave into the pain? We've got to, it's talking about not enduring, that's not the word I want, embracing. And allowing people to embrace the pain, the tears with you. I was at Cheryl's yesterday, and I was telling her about the tears, and I started crying. I just couldn't stop. I was like, I'm boohooing again about this situation. But I was so glad I was able to cry and tell her it didn't bother me at all. Deep inside, I fear that acknowledging pain gave it power. Wow. That's probably how we think. We don't even realize it. Grounds that I would not concede. We seek the place where no one can get it, where we become emotionally guarded. God knows I was that way, and I was totally in denial, emotionally guarded. Didn't want people to see me hurt, hiding that hurt for so long. I was convicted that not letting anyone in was a place where they could not hurt me. Yeah, I can get to that. I know we all can. What that conviction brought me was almost no memories of elementary school teachers and other students or even school experiences. Blocking out pain experience losses. I put my hand over my ears and chanted softly, I will not cry, I will not cry. One thing I know is that we do block things out, and I remember praying when I started CR, I was like, God, show me what I blocked out. Show me things I haven't talked about. And he literally, the Holy Spirit showed it to me, and I was like, I don't want to go tell them that. I don't want to tell them that. I'm ashamed. But how am I going to heal? How am I going to get into that pain and allow that pain to just take me through, be present in the moment? But it is painful. She said, I will not cry. I've always been kind of Joni Fanny told me she'd never seen me cry, so maybe not always a crybaby. She talked about my hard belly towards suffering meant that my pain was tightly packed. You guys ever heard of a hard belly? I never heard of that until this book. Yeah, same thing. No. But it produces the same thing. Literally, what she was talking about, a hard belly is where the visceral fat is in between the organs. And it comes from stuffing stuff down. It comes from abandonment. For her, abandonment, abuse, and that's how we can be. And it means literally your tummy is hard. Your tummy is hard. And my niece had, I raised my two nieces, and she wanted to get lipo. I was like, okay, she talked about it and everything. And she did. She went and did the sucking all this out and all that. And she had 3 children. Her last child, she'd gained the weight and never lost it. And she always looked like she was 6 months pregnant. I used to say, why do you look like that? You know, why can't you get rid of this stomach? And she would lose it to a point. And I mean, she would lose everything. But it was just sitting there. She said, they told her when she got the suction that there was nothing they could do about that her belly was hard. Now, I don't know if they explained that to her, but when I heard that, I literally cried. That her belly was packed tight. She had been abused. She'd been abandoned. She'd been all those things that hurt, that Robin talked about. And I thought about her, and my heart broke that she doesn't know that she'd been hiding this stuff. But anyway, I don't want to talk, well, too late. Anyway, that's what hard belly means. Suffering meant that my pain was tightly packed where it didn't breathe, didn't move. I would take took me 20 years of marriage before I changed to hard belly for a soft one. This shift was not easy. 20 years, y'all. Rest assured, moving into the pain allowed part of our being that has been neglected to become alive again. And I believe that. I went to 3 Rivers, and I'll never forget, they talked to me. I'm totally unaware of my situation. And the counselor, we were at night, IOP, and he said, oh, how do you get rid of certain things? No, he was talking about addiction. He said, what do you hold on to? And so I didn't answer it. I was kind of settling down and everything. And then he said, how do you let it go? I had a major meltdown simply with that statement. And he looked over at me, he said, you okay? Calistine, I was like, no, that's what I need to know. I didn't even know where those words came from. And he started talking about living in the present, feeling the pain, whatever's hurt you. Go through it. Even cry, do what you need to do, feel that pain, let your tears flow. And I've learned, I'm learning to hurt. And not all the time, I'm learning to hurt, but I'm learning to share it with people too. And so, for her to have suffered 20 years, amazing. She said this kind of mourning will only come as we trust the pain enough to allow it to speak to us. We have to allow our pain to speak to us. It says, making peace with your pain. We have to make peace with our pain. It's like we are going to go through these things. We have to decide that we're going to do that. I don't want to do it. Like Perry said, I don't want to share my faith and read my Bible all the time. I don't want to go through pain. But I'm willing to go. Only through God that I'm able to do that. Only when I pray and know that he's with me. And I pray, God, take me through the pain. Like I said, I don't know what I'm asking, but I'm stepping out on my faith. Making peace with pain, making friends with pain is kind of like praying to be humble. We fear passing through the suffering we will never get out of. But we will, because God's already gone through and he's on the other side. And accepting Satan's thorns, we have to accept that we are deserving, unworthy, unspiritual. And accepting Satan's thorn, we have to accept that we are deserving, unworthy, or unspiritual. As protection, we develop self-protecting mechanism. We avoid our pain. Messy emotions cause conflict so we can hide and move past it. We hide. I did it. Compartmentalize, squeeze or divide experiences into categories to ignore. We put it on that back burner. Compensate, pain signals. It tells us something. Robin said that she was convinced that God gave us triggers because triggers indicated undealt with pain. And I thought, wow, that's intense, and I started asking God, where's my triggers? Pain signals. We divert to relief, medication, unhealthy path. Avoiding, compartmentalizing, compensating lead to coping mechanisms, hurt, hang-ups, and habits. A dissociation that pain is no longer our friend on our friend list, Robin says. But this is not always intentional or even within our awareness. We can unconsciously unfriend pain. We know what hurts are. What are some of the habits? Identifying my list of symptoms to identify my own patterns. Some are feeling emotionally checked out during stress. I will check out on you if you hurt me. I cannot take it. Bye. See you later. You know, I just don't want to feel that. I want somebody to cuddle me. That's my love language. I like to be saying, oh, you're so cool, you know, and all that, and it ain't true, but I like it. Separating from body emotion. Compulsive tendencies are excessive behavior accompanied by self-blame. And you know, we blame ourselves for everything. We don't realize it, but we act as if we do. Intense fears, black and white thinking, inappropriate attachment. Spiritual recovery, letting our wounds speak. How do we let our wounds speak? I mean, think about it. How do we let them speak? We have to be there. We have to be in it. We have to hear what it's trying to say to us. You know, a disassociation affects my relationship with God. That's enough to make me want to go through it right there. I don't want my relationship with God to be affected. We can never experience perfect intimacy, but true intimacy grows as our guard goes down and our presence goes up. I like that. Because chaos is, okay, I think I turned the wrong page. That may have been the last of it. Sorry, guys. Yeah, 55, yes. Wounds, I am ready for you to speak to me. I think we ought to say that. I say it. When I pray, I was like, let the wound, come on, talk to me, wound. I don't care, whatever it takes for me to get what I need from God, to bring me closer to God, to clear my heart, for him to see my heart, whatever it takes. As the wounds speak, I mourn. As I mourn, God comforts me. And I'm looking for that too. As God comforts me, I began to render the hurt to him. That's not easy to do, but it can happen. By giving pain a voice, I reclaim the gift of being present. And that is the key right there. It's to stay in the moment. Cry, feel what you feel. Talk about it, write it down. I've done that. You know, trauma forces us into a time of chaos, teaches us the value of self-care and self-love, to seek help from others. Thorns takes the punch from Satan's whispers. As I go deep with Jesus, I become reassociated with the truest part of myself. Don't you want that? I want that so bad. And I pray about stuff like that because I think, I don't know what I'm searching for, but I'm looking for God. That's all I can say. It triggers as if all the past and the present to become friends. All the past and the present to become friends. My knowledge of the present and apply it to the past. You can look at that. We all have looked at our past. Grace Call. One thing I love about this book is that once we've gone through the intensity of what we're struggling with, then here comes grace. And it's just so good. It just soothes me. And I'm going to thank you, God, for putting it at the end of the book. You know, Psalm 56 says, allow a new perspective on how God has embedded grace in our suffering. Our tears are precious to God, valuable enough to collect in a bottle. I know how much you have suffered in the wake of abandonment, addiction, and abuse. I've heard your cries. Your tears allow me to pour God's love into your heart through his Spirit. And we all have his Spirit. Your spiritual journey with the stone of tears, you step into the second part of the journey. Embracing the mourning that comes in the wake of the fall. Bringing a revelation of God's grace. Our fall. Circle of stone, tears. Now in the habit of gathering stones, on this fourth stone, you will write tears. This stone, especially sacred for when the tears come, this will join trauma, thorns, and triggers. How do you converse as they interact, experience, and recreation? Matthew 5:4, it says, blessed are they that mourn, for they will be comforted. Picture Jesus weeping in pain about the fall, and him taking your stones or your tears and kissing them, then handing them back in your hand. I would just bawl. I would be like, Lord, help me, God. We are harassed and helpless people, and we don't even know it. And I studied out harassed and helpless, and I thought, wow, that's intense. I don't want to be that anymore. Thank you for letting me share.